Hello and welcome back to another episode of the ManageMe podcast. I'm your host, Will Nutsbrown, and today I'm going to talk all about choice. So I want to talk about choice and touch on the topic because recently I finished watching The Good Place, which is a Netflix show, and it's absolutely amazing. But there's one character in it, which you may realize if you've watched it, who struggles a lot with choice and is incredibly indecisive. So I want to sort of talk about my experiences with that because I feel as though I'm incredibly indecisive as well, and talk about how sometimes having too much choice can be bad, but also how we can use lots of choice to help us move forward. So imagine you're in a shop and you want to purchase a vegetable, and you're bombarded with lots and lots of different veg, and also different types of different veg. There's just so much choice. So back in the day, I'm talking thousands of years ago, did we used to have that much choice? I mean, they had markets and stuff, but did they really have 10 different types of salad, 10 different types of pineapple, and all these different types of fruits and veg anyway? Probably not. Maybe or maybe not. Either way, we need to just be able to choose and to be decisive sometimes. So how can we be decisive? For me, being decisive is the act of choosing something pretty much instantaneously without even giving it much thought necessarily. I kind of think of decisiveness along with random in the same sort of sense because you just choose something straight away. It doesn't really matter what it is, it just matters that you choose something. I think for many things that's really, really important, as in it doesn't actually matter too much what you choose. You just need to actually choose something. And it's what Jeff Bezos says as two-way doors or one-way doors, as in if you make a choice, a small choice, that's normally a two-way door. So you can go through that door, but then you can also come back out if it's the wrong choice, but you just need to make it fast. For the doors or the choices that are one-way doors, as in once you've gone through, you can't come back out, then yes, it may require a little bit more thinking. But what he says in all of his interviews is that the majority of decisions in your life are two-way doors, as in we can come back from them and it's not a huge thing if we accidentally do the wrong one. It just matters that we choose one. I think when you look at it like that, you actually just need to choose, and it doesn't really matter what you choose. Then you can easily go through these doors knowing that you have the safety net of always walking back out through them. So now I want to touch on inspiration for this episode and the fact of the Good Place. So if you've watched it, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a character called Chidi who's one of the main characters, and he is an ethics professor, and basically he finds it incredibly hard to choose things. He just always gets stuck and he ends up wasting time, and it's how he like meets some unfortunate series of events in certain times in the show. Because he just can't choose. There's so much choice. He gets frustrated and can't figure out which one to choose. He weighs up the pros and cons of absolutely everything, trying to find the optimal solution through his like ethics lens. But that's the answer, really. When you look at it, when you try and work out the optimal choice, there is never an optimal choice. I'm a firm believer of there's never an optimal choice, because whatever choice you make is the optimal choice in that sense. So there's never an optimal choice before you choose. The one you do choose is always the optimal choice, because it has to be. I mean, it's your life. There's no point going through your life and saying, oh, I've made tons of bad choices. You've made them, unfortunately, whether they were good or bad in the short run, but they are optimal for you because they've made you who you are today. Whether that's a good or bad person, if you reflecting on that and you realize you've made some bad choices, then you've made the optimal choice, because now you've realized you made bad choices and you can move forward, if that makes any sense at all. So yeah, I think it's important to understand, especially from my experience so far, where I'd say I'm incredibly indecisive. Like, oh, where should we go to lunch? I just cannot think of anywhere. I end up weighing up the pros and cons of everything as well, like the distance, like what food it's got, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, you do just need to choose, to be honest. Like, it doesn't matter where you go for lunch. It just matters that you eat. I mean, that's a really good example, because if you don't eat, you're going to die. And it's somewhat time critical. So you do actually need to, at the end of the day, choose somewhere to eat. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter if it's the best meal you've had in your life. You just need to get some food down you. And I think that's really important. And I think indecisiveness also plays in with being a people pleaser. I'd call myself a people pleaser. I'm trying to not be a people pleaser, but at the same time, the people pleaser inside of me thinks that by not being one, I'm actually being really rude to everyone and it doesn't work out. Yeah, what I need to understand is that people pleasing is slightly a bad trait, and it's not actually what it all seems to be from the outside. It is actually bad. And I think it goes hand in hand with indecisiveness because you're trying to please people all the time. You're trying to get the optimal, the utilitarianism approach um, to any situation, trying to get the best utility out of everybody's situation, maximize everyone's happiness, all of their gain and everything. Because I'm trying to do that all the time, I end up trying to find this optimal choice. And obviously, as I said before, there is never an optimal choice when you're choosing. So I end up waiting around trying to figure out what to do. And I end up hurting all of the people who I was meant to please and also hurting myself because I don't end up choosing anything. And it's basically one big compromise and no one's happy. But I do think compromising is important. It's just, it doesn't necessarily need to be a full on compromise where no one's happy. You can have someone very happy and someone slightly happy. Like, that's okay. You do not have to please people all the time. I'm going to make a future episode on people pleasing because it's such a massive topic, especially for me, as I feel as though I'm most definitely a people pleaser. Which, yeah, I've found is a bad thing, unfortunately, when I thought it would be a really good thing. It is definitely a downside. So I want to make an episode on talking about that. But yeah, this episode is all about choice and indecisiveness. And I think moving forward to, to like how we can make choice work for us, how can we gain things from choice? As I said before, if you look at it as though you just need to make a choice, it doesn't matter what choice it is. You can go through all of these tiny decisions so much faster and you can train yourself. I've been doing this recently where if there's a choice I need to make, even if it's literally the smallest choice ever, such as should I have tea or coffee now? I just choose one. I genuinely choose one randomly, and just make. I need to get into the framework, get into the mindset of just choosing stuff instantly. With okay, a slight thought, but I'm relying on my gut sort of feeling instead of going into the whole optimal situation, mathematics, blah 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 blah. I'm actually thinking, what do I actually feel like right now? And I'm just choosing that straight away because when you think of tea or coffee, one of them you will like more. Like when you run it through your head, tea or coffee, like one of them you'll like more at the moment. And for me, that's tea right now. So I'm going to go and make a tea after this. But just running through those two options, the first one is even slightly more appealing than the other option. You just go for it straight away. You don't even think about anything else to do with it. And I've been training myself to do that. Really, really simple stuff. It sounds incredibly silly, tea or coffee, but hopefully, if I keep doing this, it will help me train myself into when I do get into those bigger decisions or where I'm in a group situation and people are like, oh, where should we go for lunch? I'm able to just quickly just say something. And the most important thing about it is sticking with that option because often I say, oh, let's go there. And then I change my mind, like, oh, no, 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 let's go there. So I think using the choice to train ourselves to do better when there's even more choice is a really handy tool, especially when we're not in pressurized environments, such as right now when I'm choosing tea or coffee. If you can do it in low stress, low pressure, low number of people environments, then you can train yourself to do it with huge amounts of choice, which will become very important, I'm sure, for me in later life, down the road, even next week, for example, if I'm in like a group project or anything. Just having the ability to say something instantly and to stick with it as well is incredibly important, I think. And I think that Chidi, as in The Good Place, explains this really well because he struggles with choice, and it's shown that it is a bad thing to think about things in an optimal situation. At the end of the day, we're human. We're not mathematical creatures necessarily, if you look at it that way. We're human. We've got heart. We've got a brain, but we've also got a heart, which is a massive, massive part of us. We need to use both. We need to use our gut feeling as well. And when we use that, we will do the thing that's right for us, the thing that's best for us, which might not necessarily be the rational choice. But I don't think you can ever be truly rational, so there's no point trying to find the optimal solution. Just do the thing that you like the most in that given time and train yourself on all the other choice. That's what I've been trying to do. Obviously, this is my complete own personal opinion. You all should have different opinions from me because this podcast is just about me trying to create a sort of community of like-minded people and get some guests on as well. And talking of that, next week we have a huge guest on, or the previous week, depending on how I schedule these. But yeah, really great guest. So I hope you do listen to that. And I'm going to wrap up today's episode of the ManageMe podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you again in the next one.